Thank you for staying with us. It's time for Opinion Court. We welcome your views on our discussion. Please use the following lines to get in touch with us. 22422 is where you could send in your text message. You could use at Citizen TV Kenya, at Citizen TV News, or at Ann Kiguta. That's on Twitter and the respective Facebook pages. Please use the hashtag Opinion Court. It helps us track your conversation and get to your views. Tonight, we are discussing politics post Saba Saba and what does it mean for Jubilee and for CORD. And we're going to dedicate the first part of our conversation to CORD. Prof, I want to start with you. Did Saba Saba live up to your expectations? Did CORD deliver on what you imagined that day was about?
Yes and no. And on the point of yes, they re-emphasized the fact that there are problems in this country which require urgent attention. Some of them were outlined in their 13-point program. And so that one, they still delivered because the message should continue, reaching the people that there's a problem and probably we all collectively get a solution. But on the other hand, my expectations were that I expected, in terms of doing business, political business, I expected a different approach in doing it. I didn't expect the same Mapambano team coming back because I think the nation is tired with this Mapambano story. Fellows who have not been very creative in their politics and offering new solutions, who have a past that really shows that probably if somebody gave them certain goodies, they'll keep quiet. So the cast, a few fellows were impressive. If I got fellows like Hassan Omar here, is a new person on the platform, but the old group that were part of CORD and especially ODM, I think I didn't say anything new. I would still imagine the same 2007 story, 2013 story. So in terms of ideas and innovativeness, in terms of changing our politics, I saw the same old story, so I was very, very disappointed.
Opio, some have called it an anticlimax. A tsunami was promised and it was sunny blue skies. Is it yet to come?
Anna, before you determine whether the Saba Saba was a success or not, you must first of all ask yourself who was giving the yardstick to measure its success or otherwise. But again, the most important thing is to look at Saba Saba and its aftermath in a context of history. Yeah, you must look at it from a historical perspective. Why Saba Saba came and what really is the way forward. I would want to remind you and everyone else that this country has achieved the remarkable gains on the front of democratic reforms and human rights over a period of time, of a long time indeed. You'll recall that the 1990 Saba Saba, which was the first Saba Saba, really, was all about fighting for the introduction of multipartyism, which was achieved. But then after the introduction of multipartyism, there came an issue of constitutional and legal reforms, which were not achieved by the repeal of the infamous Section 2A then. And therefore, the clamor for comprehensive constitutional and legal reforms got underway, in earnest. And this led to the so-called IPPG of 1997, which didn't achieve much. And therefore, the clamor continued. We thought that by bringing in the NAC government in 2002, these reforms would come to pass. That didn't happen because, as you all know, the NAC dream aborted to the disappointment of many Kenyans. And therefore, the struggle for these reforms continued. And this, of course, led to 2005, when Kenyans were firmly rejected the Waki draft.
It's a long process, your point.
But now, the point is that what was this Saba Saba all about? The latest Saba Saba. The fact is that this Saba Saba was about protection of the democratic gains that we have achieved over the years through the sweat and suffering of Kenyans. And more importantly, it arose because of the systematic attempt by the ruling regime, that is the Jubilee regime, to claw back on the gains that have been achieved over a long period of time.
And in your opinion, it was successful in what, raising perhaps public awareness on the same?
It was a resounding success, the sense that it succeeded in refocusing the attention of the people to these very serious issues that bedevil the country as we speak. Issues that we thought could be tackled through honest, structured dialogue, which the Jubilee regime refused to accept.
Right.
Just a little response to what Mheshimiwa is saying. These issues, I have acknowledged the issues are very good issues. But Anne, if you look at these issues, look at the messengers. Issues of corruption, some of the messengers have been in positions in the past where in government where they would have sorted out some corruption, even in their own dockets, in lands, in medical services. What have they done?
You're referring to Professor Anyang' Nyong'o?
Yes, and I'm giving examples, general examples.
Yeah, let's be specific.
Yes,
Professor
Anyang' Nyong'o, for example, was in medical services.
Okay.
At one time, through his declaration, nurses were sacked. How do you create jobs by sacking nurses? He probably thinks they have forgotten that. Secondly, you know, there have been people in immigration. Kajwang was in charge of immigration. How much did he work that we can touch tangible evidence that he did something to change the level of corruption in immigration? So I could go on and go on, but I'm saying that therefore the message they are passing is correct. But what puts off most Kenyans is that the messengers, some of the messengers, give you the impression that if, for example, you gave them responsibility to look after us, they probably will not solve the same things they are talking about. So this is the frustration I myself as a Kenyan I'm going through when I look at the people who are passing the message.
Let me get to Sakaja. So I'll give you an opportunity to respond. What do you think of what Professor said? And I didn't want to introduce Jubilee this early in the conversation, but nonetheless I will. Because the fear is that Jubilee are sitting somewhere smug, right? Saying there was no tsunami. And as a result, it's going to be business as usual. While the fact is that there were, as Professor is saying, real issues that many Kenyans are worried about and perhaps feel there's been inaction, or even if there's been attempts, the point is we're not seeing the change that perhaps Kenyans envisaged when your team was elected into power.
And you know, if you didn't call me, I would not have come, because really, when your opponent is making mistakes, it's very rude to interrupt them. And CORD has been a spectacular failure as an opposition in this country. When Kenyans went to the ballot, they elected a government. But at the same time, and with the same voice, with the same mandate, they elected an opposition, by the opposition not garnering enough votes. And Mheshimiwa Wandai has attested to that fact. He said a legitimately elected government, which is there. When you elect an opposition,
I didn't say
expect
that.
Yes, you said it.
For point of correction, I didn't say that.
You can watch YouTube later.
We don't agree that this government was elected legitimately.
But for purposes of argument, let's proceed.
You don't have to.
For his argument,
you don't have to. It's ruling.
Please, let's continue.
The point is this: Kenyans expect an opposition that will oppose on issues. An opposition that will tell us, look, these guys are doing wrong on this thing. This is our alternative. This is what we stand for. Now, CORD lacks three things. One, ideas and originality. Two, credibility. And three, substance.
Let's talk about substance. CORD talked about security. Is security a problem in this country?
You see, when Wandai is saying that the success of the rally was to remind Kenyans about the problems they're facing, you do not need to remind any Kenyan. We are facing serious challenges as a country. There are problems. You don't need to remind us. We know it. But what is your solution? Have you ever had one policy alternative that CORD has presented? In the past, we used to have shadow cabinet ministers in different dockets. What is CORD's plan on security? We have said our plan, and we're implementing it. It is taking time. Yes, there are challenges. We accept the challenges. We would like to hear what ideas they might have, but we're confident that in due time, and as soon as is actually possible, most of these things will be sorted out. When CORD was busy politicking and actually hurting our economy, you saw the president. He went to the lands registry to sort out Orengo's mess. He went to the airports authority to sort out issues which, by extension, would have been sorted out by Kajwang at immigration. We're dealing with security. He was the Minister of Immigration when we got a lot of infiltration from people who are not here. So we are working. We are doing what Kenyans have asked us to do as a government. But the people who speak, on that point, I said credibility, originality, and substance. The people who speak on behalf of CORD are not believable. There are people who've been involved in scandals. There are people who have been alleged to have been involved in scandals, right from the 3 principles of CORD. So
you are
if I was a CORD,
position.
I support to some extent.
You know,
if I was a CORD member, I would go to court tomorrow and sue the CORD principles for severe underwhelmment. It was extremely underwhelming.
Wow.
Unlike my friend,
I'm sure you're happy that you were underwhelmed.
No, I'm actually concerned.
Are you about the future of the opposition? Please go ahead.
Unlike my friend Honorable Sakaja and the professor here, I don't want to dwell on personalities because that is really to trivialize very serious issues. CORD did not just go to Uhuru Park to remind Kenyans of the problems they're facing. Kenyans are very much aware of the problems because they feel them.
So what solution do you propose?
What Kenyans have done over the past few weeks is to engage in a robust conversation amongst themselves. And this is a conversation to which we're inviting the Jubilee government so that we can have a constructive dialogue and look and chart the way forward together as a country. Now,
which is okay.
Jubilee in their wisdom have refused to join Kenyans. Now Kenyans have decided to continue the dialogue on their own. And that's why you look at the 13-point program.
I want you to hold on, Professor, because he brings in an interesting point, and I want to bring in exclusive commentary we have from Mutahi Ngunyi. You say you've succeeded in terms of getting the masses to think about the issues. Hold on, sir. Please, Sakaja. Sakaja's point saying couldn't fill a stadium. Let's see what Mutahi Ngunyi thinks about mass support, and then we'll chat.
Saba Saba was not about Raila and his brigade. Saba Saba was about the masses that showed up. And if you looked at those groups that came out, they didn't look convinced about it. And I think it is an indication that maybe Raila has run his course. And that is probably unfortunate that he is not reading the signs. He's run out of ideas. It's unfortunate. I'm very saddened by that myself because I think he's a great revolutionary. But probably he is not, he did not have a plan, the long and short of it. If Saba Saba failed to happen, it is not because Raila did not try. It is not because Kalonzo did not talk and passionately about it. But it failed to happen because the people are not necessarily with them. What has happened is that the people have moved on, but Raila and co have refused to move on. They are still stuck in the time warp of March 4th, well as the people seem to have progressed because they're saying, all right, we do this Saba Saba, but what do we go back home and tell our families? So this is a kind of a disconnect between the leaders and the people they're leading. And they say that if you don't have anybody following you as a leader, you're just taking a walk. And I think that's what became obvious in the case of this particular meeting. Raila and co are just taking a walk. They might have as well slept at Uhuru Park.
Hold on, before I know you're eager to respond, but let me put the question to you, Opio, also because you're an ODM member of parliament, and obviously conspicuously a lot of the young Turk, if you like, of ODM abandoned these rallies quite early in the day and were not there. Sakaja, please hold on. I know you're raring to go, but hold your peace for a bit. They did abandon these rallies. That's a fact, Mheshimiwa. We have the footage. We have the footage. Let me make my point. Would you agree that there is perhaps an issue in as far as the leadership of ODM going forward is concerned, and that perhaps those who are holding the mantle now are not able to carry forward, quote unquote, the aspirations of those who have legitimate concerns, who did show up, who do agree with you that there's a problem in security and all these other parts of government? Tell us about that.
You know, firstly, Anne, to address what Mutahi Ngunyi was talking about, of course, he's entitled to his opinion, which is obviously prejudiced. Because he's obviously espousing a right-wing ideology, which we don't want to get involved with now. But then the point is that over the time, CORD has demonstrated that it is with the people. And the people have demonstrated everywhere in the country that the issues CORD is raising are issues which are dear to their hearts. On the question of faces that you think Kenyans are tired of, really, that is really to trivialize again a very serious issue. You will recall, and if you are of age, in the 1990.
Well, I host this show. I'm sure I could.
In
handle
1990,
it.
in 1990, when Jaramogi Oginga Odinga led the clamor and for multipartyism, he was in his late 70s, and indeed, you know, it's easy to attempt to rewrite history.
Are you campaigning for somebody?
But the fact is that you cannot alter facts which are in public domain. So the point is, what is critical is to focus on the message and the issues, not the personalities propagating those issues or messages.
Could the messenger cost you the message? Is that something you could possibly
we have our own way of rebranding, and we haven't sought the opinion or services of any other person in that respect. But the fact is that as CORD, we have a game plan, we have got a strategy to achieve what majority of Kenyans desire for themselves, so that we can free them ultimately from the yoke of dictatorship, which is creeping back through Jubilee.
You see, I have two quick things to say. This sort of talk by the MP summarizes CORD intolerance. And they always think they are right, and when you propose something, they think you don't like them. So really, it's not about somebody coming to power when he's 70 years or something, but to also relook at your strategies, because you can be our alternative government. So really, the guys that are in CORD and are leading the struggle have lost direction. They're actually stuck. For the first time, I don't usually buy Mutai Ngunyi, but today I would on that point. But what I would also like to say, as you become intolerant like that, so you can see what it's doing to our nation. On one hand, you say you are right, and you don't want even to look at the leadership. Even when men in green and in black come to disrupt your elections and you don't hold your elections, you still think you are working with all Kenyans. This is short-sightedness. But for you, especially my friend Sakaja, when you go back, tell Jubilee that they should stop languishing in this arrogance about numbers. Part of the reason why CORD has set up a very unique civilian coup, this is what they were doing, because they don't want us to go to the constitution because they have lost interest, is because you guys, when you got power, you don't practice power with humility. A good government and a civilized government should practice power with humility, which means you agree with the people that you defeated and also listen to the points they make. The points the points that CORD has been raising are genuine points, and you should engage them through the institution of the constitution. But if you close doors, these guys are staging a coup.
Prof, you know why I wholeheartedly disagree with you.
Yes.
At the beginning of this interview, for instance, and even as we've been speaking, I have acknowledged there are indeed certain challenges.
But the tyrant of numbers. Talk about the tyrant of numbers, which is always being cited. Anytime somebody says, let's go to parliament and sort out this, and you say, what to do? This attitude of...
We have never...
Is that how they say?
Yes, you know,
let him respond, Professor, let him respond.
Let me tell you something, Prof.
Yes.
Parliament is an institution, a national institution, enshrined in our constitution.
Yeah.
It is not Jubilee that decided to have numbers in Parliament. It is the people of Kenya who voted in majority of Jubilee members of National Assembly and senators. Parliament is a place where we reason out. There are bills that have been proposed by CORD members. For example, John Buddy on VAT. For example, Alan Kainan, he has actually 2 bills that have passed. And they've passed. We're reasonable. But the point I'm trying to say, which you had gotten it a bit, and now you're veering off. Raila Odinga is an indelible part of our history. He has played a serious role in this country, and we respect him for that. But the key word is history. He is part of history. He is not part of the future. Unless CORD actually rebrands, and you know, he's used words that I'm shocked, because words like strategy, rebranding, those are foreign words in CORD. I'm probably the only person who knows them. Because there is no strategy that they've actually employed that has worked. Let me give you a few examples. Quickly, just very quickly. Number one, they say that with the masses. Did aliens vote for Jubilee or Martians? Just because we do not show arrogance that you're saying to say, because if we wanted to, we'd have duplicated Uhuru Park and had twice the number. We'd have gone down the country. We don't do it. Now look, the people he's saying that demonstrate there with CORD, Why do they never show that? They never demonstrate support for code in elections.
But you see,
in Kisii, for example,
back the issue of
3
elections.
by-elections since the last election. 3 by-elections, code has lost to Jubilee severely, including losing a sitting member, Bichage. And 2 weeks ago, we got 2 days after Raila was there, we got it. The people are not with code. The people want the
Gentlemen, wait, hold on. I really must give you a chance to respond.
And it is important to put the record straight. Professor alluded to the fact that CORD is staging some kind of civilian coup. Indeed, nothing could be further from the truth. And Jubilee can continue to live in love. The fact is that no revolution is ever planned. Okay? You can sit pretty, but then when the revolution hits you, you only realize once you have been consumed by it.
Are you hoping for one?
We aren't hoping for one, but of course the sentiments, the feelings, the conditions that are necessary for a revolution are being created by the government itself. Okay, but then that's beside the point. The point is that what we have been engaged in is peaceful conversation amongst Kenyans. But going back to Honorable Sakaja's point of using Parliament as a platform for enacting laws, if you are a very keen observer of this Parliament, which of course exercises only delegated power, delegated by the people as per the Constitution, this Parliament, of course, which is represented by Jubilee, has had a record of enacting legislations or amending existing legislations with the view to, of course, subverting the very Constitution which it swore to defend. And I can mention a number of them. Look at the Media Law, okay? You look at the Police Service Commission Act. Look at the Police Service Act. Look at the NGO Act, which of course we defeated by chance.
How did you defeat it?
And of course it came to Rome's Amendment Bill, which we defeated. The marshal ourselves has called and got some more progressive minds in Jubilee, and we defeated.
All right.
And you can go on and on. So the sum effect of this is that Jubilee has been trying to amend the Constitution through the back door, using its tyranny in the National Assembly. And that's what we are saying, that Parliament itself is contentious. It's a house that needs to be debated.
You've brought in quite an interesting perspective about amending the Constitution, and I want to bring in analysis from, you will have a chance to respond. I want to bring in analysis now from Mutahi Ngunyi on the very same, now as we shift gears and focus on Jubilee after Saba Saba. Is there an opportunity for them, and what does it have to do with the Constitution? Let's listen.
And if there's anything that came out of this Saba Saba thing, out of the 13 resolutions, there's only one resolution that makes sense, that we need to have a referendum regarding this situation. And my thinking is that this is a calamity that Uhuru should capitalize on. One of the things he needs to do is to support the referendum.
And what would it be on specifically?
It doesn't matter what the referendum is on. The referendum can be about the shape of Uhuru's head. They might say that when we elected him, the shape was round. Now it has become oval, and we want to be having a president with a shape of a head that is consistent. It can be as fickle as that in the case of Raila, because Raila is using a referendum purely to galvanize his support and to prepare himself for the election. That's the purpose for which he's doing it. But Uhuru can take this and say, no, I'll use this referendum for correcting a constitution that I was opposed to, because he was opposed to it. And Ruto was leading the other side that opposed it. And they can take this also to correct the anomaly of the tyranny of numbers, if they work it out well.
All right, as I come to you, gentlemen, I'm coming to you for your final comment, because we are out of time. Please do touch on what Mutahi Ngunyi has said. The Constitution, many times, from both sides of the political divide, we've talked about it as being a fluid document. It's not perfect. Is this the opportunity to correct it? Sakaja, your final views.
Of course not. The first issue that CORD is lamenting about, and they'll keep crying about, that Mheshimiwa Wandai is talking about, is he has issues with Parliament, and I'd like to dare him on national TV. If you think Parliament is not the right platform to address national issues, resign. Just resign. Secondly, the call for referendum, if you watched that CORD rally, I think someone just came up with it on stage. There's no plan. They're not serious. If you ask him right now, what are the referendum questions, he cannot tell you. There are no questions. They've not thought this thing through.
What are the
They're not clear about it. Sorry, tell us the questions.
Lack of knowledge. Because
what are the
referendum questions can only be framed through the.
What questions do you want answered? What questions do you want answered?
I will be
So Zohana to go to a referendum for Kenyans to tell us what are the questions for referendum?
We have laid bare the issues. In fact, there are 13 points. I'm surprised that I think when you're talking about the referendum as the only initial case of
let me finish my point. The point is this: God has no plan, and they have displayed it in very many occasions. Kenyans want development at this point. Kenyans want to put food on the table. Kenyans want unity and cohesion. Kenyans do not want to be in a perpetual election cycle. Now, CORD says disband the IBC. We'll go for a referendum on the disbandment. Then again, they say they want a referendum that is run by the United Nations. You know,
yes, because the IBC is one of the issues.
Where are the United Nations to run an election in the world? You know, they lack faith in our own country. Institutions that were created. Institutions that were created when Raila Odinga was the Prime Minister. If you fail to score, and I know Kenyans have been following the World Cup, if you're not scoring and you are not performing, you don't change the referee. Change your strikers.
All right. Final comments.
Yes, my comments. And there will be quick ones in succession.
Thank you.
It confirms to what they have said. That the UN, the referendum story, the IEBC. If you are going to change the IEBC without following the laid down regulations within the Constitution, you are staging a civilian coup outside the Constitution. So please, let's get this right. So I think that the frustration CORD is having is because sometimes Jubilee is not using its power, applying this power in humility. But finally, this is what I want to talk about to Mutahi Ngugi. Mutahi Ngugi did not support the Constitution. And since he did not support the Constitution, he's encouraging our president to use the referendum to destroy this Constitution. So if that's the case, then there should be no referendum.
Okay, I want to say, gentlemen, I appreciate what you've said, but you have unfortunately left my final guest very little time. Sir, please make your final views.
Yeah, my final view is that this is an opportunity that Kenyans need to seize, really, to right the wrongs that have been meted on them by the Jubilee regime in this short span of 1.5 years or so. So it is an issue that needs to be looked at objectively, not from the prism of ethnicity or
we're out of time. No, Professor? No, we are out of time. We're out of time. I'm going to have to move away from you all, but sincerely thanking you for your views on Opinion Court.